Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account to get amazing odds boosts every single day. Rudo and Jesse coming at you live as the Avs take on the Sharks in the worst lit building in the NHL.
Worst lit. The cameras are at a terrible angle. They're at a weird height. I've always hated watching games in San Jose. It's terrible.
Agreed. It's not the best building to do it in. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Avs actually playing with a full lineup tonight. So
yeah. In terms of number of players, we were confused by the no call up. Then they made the trade. Like, oh, that makes sense. And then they traded Tyson Jost for someone who wasn't going to be there in time. So they did play short a couple nights ago. But Nico Sturm slotting in between JT Compher and Alex Newhook.
Yep.
Moving Newhook away from center for the first time in a while. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into all of Sturm and his abilities quickly. But first, Avs playing with Kemper in net.
Yep.
Expecting to beat a team like the San Jose Sharks.
Yep.
Sharks in a bit of a weird spot. Let's start here. What did you think of the Hurdle extension?
All right. It was one of those things where we were talking the other night, or the other day, excuse me, on one of the shows, and it may have actually even been about this Hurdle extension, where you see teams make moves sometimes that are, you sit there and you're like, well, why would you do that? Conventional wisdom says you should move on from that guy.
Sure.
But they do it as not necessarily PR moves, but to sell tickets. I don't remember what team it was that we were talking about Vancouver. That was who it was. Do they keep their own players as rentals just to get into the playoffs? And is that actually better for the franchise than to move on from them and get the assets? And you could make we were talking about how you could make the argument either way that yes, maybe for a market like Vancouver, that does matter. Just get in and who cares if you get your ass kicked. To me, that was kind of how the Hurdle thing was. It's a long commitment. 8 by 8.25?
8.25, I think. Yeah.
I don't know. Very good player. Good player.
It's not that I don't think Hurdle's worth it necessarily.
Yeah.
It's you look at the rest of their cap sheet and you're like, boy.
Right. And I guess that's kind of where I was going with that was like, they moved on from Pavelski a couple years ago. There's just been a lot of bad things around San Jose for the last few years. So this to me seems like a contract of, well, we want to have a positive. He's a fan favorite. I mean, he's a great player. Had he not re-signed, he probably would have been the most sought after player at this deadline, including Claude Giroux.
Yep.
So he's a very good player. So yeah, it's not that the deal was bad, but it's just like, whoa, you guys really haven't learned a single lesson from handing out all these max term contracts.
You're still sitting on Burns and Carlson and Couture, and it's like
and now you added Hurdle, and it's like cool. Well, let's just do this again in 5 years.
Yep.
And so I don't know. It keeps a good player where he's well liked in place, but the term is more of the Again, you just can't believe. And who knows? Maybe it works out this time.
It'll work eventually, right?
Maybe the fourth time's a charm.
It is Frankie tonight. Apologies, chat. With the Kemper's shutout streak is like 125 minutes now, I think. So, yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. Somewhere between 125 and 130.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. Not more than 2 games, put it that way.
Yep.
So we'll see. I mean, again, Sharks are a team that aren't really that competitive this year, even with Hurdle and all of the big money they're spending. So should be a beatable team for the Avs, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, this was a team that had a little bit of early season success. Kind of jump-started that maybe they'll keep Hurdle conversation of, wow, are they going to be able to sneak in? Are they overachieving? They had some good young players coming through. But eventually, kind of like with the Ducks, it just fizzled out and settled right about where you thought it would. And so, I mean, fine team with some okay pieces, but a ways to go for sure.
Certainly doesn't help that they're on the second half of a back-to-back.
Yep.
Starting Zachary Sawchenko.
Who?
Yes, correct. Who
Yeah.
is an accurate statement. He has not very many NHL games. It's 6. It's 2 starts. This is his 3rd career start. So Yeah, Avs throw pucks on net, as
Yeah.
they say, against a young goaltender for sure.
I think they will.
Down the lineup, it's been 2 games, so this is like probably hyperbole and way unnecessary. Is Mikko Rantanen the Avs' most important player right now?
I don't even know about just right now. I mean, obviously, you've got Nathan McKinnon, Cale
course.
Makar, but Mikko has always served this very underrated, really important role in my eyes, at least.
Yeah.
Because that Nathan McKinnon, that line gets the matchups, but he's the one that gets. You don't really see a ton of like double teams in hockey, but you see teams favoring his side of the ice. You see guys collapse on him. Mikko is in such a rare spot in this league in that you usually, you see like the Draisaitl, McDavid, Crosby, Malkin, all centers. And when you put them together, it's like you're obviously putting them together.
Yep.
No, Mikko, like that's his natural position is to play on the wing.
Yep.
So like he does have a bunch of extra room, and he kind of always is that X factor where if Nathan McKinnon's getting shut down, that typically means that Mikko's got a little bit of room, and that's what's led to some of the Avs' success over the last few years. Is some of their consistent success is you can't even really shut down that entire line.
You got to pick your poison a little bit for sure.
Do we favor this side of the ice, knowing that we're going to leave a guy like that wide open, or with some more room? So I think he's always one of their most important players, even given the superstar talent they've got.
For sure. I don't really have an argument against that. I do think we have seen an uptick in play, though, after Landy has gone out. So more impactful maybe is a better way to put it of late.
I was going to say, because that is the crazy thing about Mikko Rantanen, is there are times when he's not playing well, but he's so good that what a terrible night from him.
Yeah.
A goal and 2 assists.
Right.
And you're like, okay, never mind. And so, I think impactful is the right word for him, because he seems to always find a way to produce one way or the other. But on nights when he's out there, like really, and you can
Going
really
at
feel him
it,
as a
yeah.
presence, that's when he's making his biggest difference.
Okay.
Obviously.
So them at the top, Nico Sturm in the bottom 6, middle 6.
I
of the
imagine
lineup.
that'll be a third line.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised. I mean, I guess maybe this is what we've talked about a little bit with is this a small way to get Alex Newhook a little bit more talent?
Sure.
A little bit more finish on his line. He's playing now with JT Compher and Nico Sturm tonight.
2 guys that do score goals.
At a little bit higher clip than some of the guys that he's been strapped with recently.
Yep.
So I don't know. I was intrigued by it, but again, I still think I think Bednar's messing with these lines still, and I think he's going to continue to do that for the rest of the way, at least between now and Monday, because he knows, like, he's not an idiot. He knows that there's going to be a shakeup coming, probably to some extent. So what are some other looks? I mean, maybe this kind of winks at, and this is obviously speculation, but just, maybe it winks at, there's been a couple guys' names in the bottom 6 who have come up in trade talks, and I don't necessarily know who for sure. Maybe they're all here. Maybe I'm missing 1 or 2 of them. Maybe I'm whatever. Let me just see what kind of combinations I've got in the couple games that I have. Because I would have thought that you just plug this guy in on that 4th line. You say, boom, immediate upgrade. A little bit more true center. I don't know. Maybe that he's going to look for that as kind of a secondary shutdown pair. Bednar said yesterday, Nico Sturm is kind of like a forward Josh Manson.
Yep.
He's bigger. He's a little bit nastier. But again, he can finish at a little bit higher clip than Jost. So, again, I think it will be part of an ongoing experiment, especially between now and Monday.
I mean, I think it's a good point because if nothing else, you're getting Landy back for the playoffs.
Right.
You're expecting something to happen on Monday,
Right.
whatever it is.
Right.
That could be adding a forward. It could be subtracting a forward. It could go kind of either way there.
Yeah.
You don't really,
Could be
maybe both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you really are, it's a luxury that Bednar gets to experiment now.
Yep.
With those lines instead of saying, all right, I guess I got to figure it out on Monday.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, what happens if you make a a deal, let's say Claude Giroux falls through, and you kind of end up going to plan B, plan C.
Lehkonen or whatever.
Yeah, Lehkonen, and this is purely just for the sake of this conversation, but Lehkonen and then a Phil Kessel level guy where they're eating a lot of money. You didn't have to give up much to get him, and now you've got a little bit more jumble in your bottom and middle six. Again, I think he's starting to look at combinations and say, okay, well, if I'm missing these guys, wow, I put that line together and something really seemed to click there, knowing that
maybe run that and be fine. Yeah.
I can run that, or I can swap out this guy here. And you're right, not a lot of teams, especially right now when you look at in the West, not a lot of teams have that luxury to be messing around and seeing what would be nice to have and what's gelling and what's not. Just another, great position that the Avs are in. Because they've taken care of business.
Yep, 100%. They've put themselves in an advantageous situation by how well they've played, and now they get to take advantage of it a little bit.
Right.
We saw the other night against LA, and McKinnon played under 20 minutes in that game because they just didn't need him to play more than that. So
so they're not overextending players that are in the lineup. You've got your goaltenders rotating pretty regularly, like a 2-1, 2-1 at most. Obviously, they shut down Sam Girard for an undetermined amount of time. To me, if Landy didn't know that he would be back for this season's playoff run, I don't think he would have done it. I think it was something that could probably have waited.
Yeah.
But they're in a situation where, hey, we've done the right things. We haven't brought our A game, whatever it is, 40 something times, but we've done the right things. We've stuck to our processes, and we've put ourselves in a position that we can make sure we're geared up for the playoffs.
Yep.
And I have the full quote typed out, and I'm actually going to push it out tonight during the game. Bednar's full quote the other night when I asked him, are you guys focusing on Carolina closing on you? Are you guys focused on Calgary could have brought it within 6 points? And, I mean, he was adamant. No, that is not our concern at all. We do not care where we finish.
It starts to matter in May.
Right. It starts to matter in May. And the fact that is kind of how they're looking at it almost kind of makes where they're at all the more impressive. The fact that they're not saying, again, we talked about it last year, coming down the stretch, they played guys that were probably injured, that probably could have benefited from a night off to try to get the President's Trophy. Doesn't seem to bother him this year.
Yeah, I think that's the right take to have if you're asking me personally.
Right. And again, it's led to you being able to experiment with stuff ahead of the trade deadline.
Yeah, 100%. So you have that side of it. You have the trade deadline, which rumors are just spiraling out of control today. It is literally all over the place. The Giroux stuff, if you've been living under a rock, sounds like it's down to the Avs in Florida. It sounds like the Avs might have the better offer, but Giroux wants to go to Florida.
Yeah, so what we're hearing, I stayed up late just to see if anything kind of started picking up traction. And then I set an alarm just to get up and kind of check things this morning, and then I went back to bed. Yeah. But yeah, basically where we're at, it sounds like last night a deal got pretty close with Florida. Here's what I honestly think. I think it's very similar to what you just laid out. I think Claude Giroux has said, I'd go to either of these teams.
Yep.
My preference is Florida. Don't know why. For whatever,
it is what it is.
For whatever reason, family, lineup reasons, no state tax, pick a reason.
Those are his personal reasons.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
He is saying that is my preference. The fact that this is still ongoing to me tells me that he has at least told Chuck Fletcher and the Flyers at some point, to some extent, he's willing to go to Colorado.
It's Colorado.
Right.
Yeah.
And from everything that we've heard, all the reports that have been out, it sounds like the Avs have the offer, at least between the two, who knows if it's exactly what Philly wants, between the two that Philly would rather take. And we walked through it yesterday on the show. Yep. It makes sense. Philly needs defense coming through their pipeline and stepping into their NHL lineup. Florida doesn't have that in terms to offer of high-end prospects.
And they don't have a first in the next 2 years either.
Florida doesn't have a first in the next 2 years, and it sounds like they're not really willing to part with the 2024 one either and put themselves out 3 years. The Avs have a first-round pick in the 2023 draft, which is really kind of looked at as more valuable this year, just because of everything surrounding that draft.
Yep.
And so I think what Philly is trying to do is they're saying we're trying to do right by Claude Giroux and sending him where he wants to go. But I don't know, one, if Florida is interested in upping their offer, or two, if they have the ability to. If the Avs are offering, I saw an unconfirmed report that one of the offers that was on the table for the Avs was Justin Barron and a first. I don't know if Florida has something to match that. Or even the equivalent of that. You have probably an NHL-ready defenseman who probably plays in Philly's lineup for the rest of the year in Justin Barron, and then a first-round pick next year in what's considered a much deeper draft. So I think they're trying to do right by him. The fact that this is still ongoing tells you that the Avs are still in it to some extent.
Apparently Aaron Ekblad just got hurt. I don't like that. Doesn't necessarily mean Florida's out. Yes, they could pivot and go get a defenseman if Ekblad is seriously hurt. But one, I have no idea how bad Ekblad actually is. He could be okay. Two, Claude Giroux's still really good. You don't necessarily take yourself out of that equation just because Ekblad gets hurt.
Right. Yeah, and then Dylan or Brendan Hagel? Oh my God.
Yeah, ESPN's had that wrong for weeks. For some reason, they have the Leafs logo on Justin Barron's page. It's pretty funny. But there are other things out there. Like in a world where Giroux does end up in Florida, there's a bunch of rumors about Max Domi today. Yep. There are rumors about Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat as well.
I was going to say the Chicago one is the one where, again, I still think that we're pretty... I think this is more summertime stuff. It would still be pretty shocking to me if this...
I agree.
If this was pulled off. But again, I mentioned it just the other day. This stuff gets out for a reason, and the timing of it was all just a little weird to me. And now today they move on from Brandon Hagel, and you have Jonathan Toews come out in an interview and say, look, I think everyone's pretty nervous right now. If they're moving on from him, who else might they be moving on from if he's not part of the rebuild? Then you have an NHL Network analyst come out and say, hey, I'm being told by my Chicago people that they're putting lines back in the water saying, hey, look, we just got a great return on Brandon Hagel. If we can get the returns we want, we're maybe interested in doing some of this now.
Sure.
He mentioned Patrick Kane. He mentioned Alex DeBrincat. And he said, if those two guys go, then you do look at Jonathan Toews. That combined with the Toews comment, again, I don't doubt that the Hawks caught a bit of a wild hair today.
Yeah.
And we're like, whoa.
If people are going to pay us that.
Right. If people are going to pay us exactly what we want, we're at least going to listen. But again, it throws a couple names back out there. We know the Avs were interested. Are they willing to pay what Chicago's looking for? Because it sounds like maybe they're a little bit more open for business than they were leading on. Like you said, Max Domi's name is picking up steam. Now with Ben Sherratt off the table, Mark Giordano's name is picking up steam.
Yep. Lindholm's name has been out there too.
Yep. It sounds like the Ducks and Hampus Lindholm can't come to an agreement on an extension. So they're going to be putting him out there. It also sounds like the Ben Sherratt deal has driven the price up.
I would imagine,
on some of the defensemen. At
least in the immediate.
Right. And so, I mean, this has been one of the crazier buildups to the deadline that I can remember in the last several years, at least.
It does feel aggressive this year.
Yeah,
it really does. With all the maybe that's just because the Avs are involved in Giroux, but it feels like every 30 seconds there's another tweet on my feed of like, well, then what about this?
Right. Yeah, and I don't know. It's just I feel like there's been stuff in the last few years where. It gets done a week before, and wow, that was a big deal, good return. And then it's like kind of small stuff, but I think you have a few different circumstances, the hard cap over the last couple of years, expiring deals. I think players are just kind of changing the way that they do business a bit. It's not so surefire that guys are going to re-sign. We've seen more big names actually hit the free agent market in the last few years than ever was kind of standard in the NHL.
Yeah.
And so teams are willing to move on from guys in order just to get the return.
Right.
And we haven't even mentioned Jacob Chychrun.
Yeah. There's some injury stuff there. But.
Right. But just I think there's more big names that I would say are legitimately out there. Now we'll see if they all get moved, but more big names that are being, verified, confirmed, having come up in discussion. And it's just, it's made for a really interesting week. And I'm anxious to see what the next 2 days bring.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get any quieter. I'll put it that way for sure.
Here's the one thing I'm going to say about the Giroux thing, because I was thinking about it today and last night when all that stuff was coming out about Florida being the preference. And I don't know, maybe this is probably a bit dramatic, but doesn't it feel like the Avs need to land one of these guys? I'm not necessarily saying to win, but like I was just going through it today in my head. Pietrangelo, Stone, Taylor Hall.
I mean, even more recently with like Jack Eichel.
Jack Eichel, who was the one last year? No, I already said Taylor Hall.
There was Kreider.
Yep.
Who ended up not getting traded.
So Panarin, Stone, Pietrangelo, Eichel, and Taylor Hall were all big name superstar players who it was confirmed that the Avs were very far in on, and they've landed none of them.
Being the bridesmaid starting to get a little old, for sure.
Right. And so it's just one of those things where it's like you almost just feel like for this regime, and it's part of what makes you wonder if Joe Sakic's going to do something where it's like, look, I've made the great trade where it's clear we've come out on top.
Yeah.
1,000 times now. I'm going to take the big swing and I'm going to give up a little too much.
To actually get the guy.
Right, to actually get the guy. And I'm not saying that they need to. And you could. Shattenkirk was another one that I kind of had in my mind. And that one, meh. But like all those other guys are like legitimate superstar players. Yeah. Taylor Hall passed up on them twice.
Yep.
And you just sit there and it's like they've like you said, they've been the bridesmaid. They've been the runner-up now 5 times on big name superstar players. And you do just wonder if Joe Sakic's going to say, even if he doesn't go get Giroux, I'm going to go do something because I have come close 5 times and it's not going to happen again. I'm going to get this guy.
Yeah.
We'll see if he does it, but if he's really got the better offer, as much as I think Philly is trying to do right by Giroux and send him where his preference is, I think he's looking out for them a bit as well and saying, I'm not going to screw you over if the return is, if there's that big of a disparity in the return. And if the Avs just up the ante a little too much, who knows? Maybe they say to him like, look, man, we can't pass this up.
Yeah. It's
still a great team for you to go to. His agent's been talking to the Avs, been talking to the Panthers and plenty of other teams now for a few weeks. So he's pretty comfortable knowing who's who, but I do. There's just part of me that I think Sakic's going to make a big move happen because tired of missing out on it.
He wants to get one eventually.
Yeah.
It's speaking of returns,
yes,
we don't have Blaze bets tonight, but we're going to try to make you a little bit of money.
Yeah,
over with DraftKings. Jesse, I know you had a couple you wanted to get out there.
Yep.
As he pulls them up here.
First, weekend gambling primer is out. Just hit a few hours ago in time for for a couple games tonight. This weekend, got some nice props on there. Had a great weekend last weekend.
Let's go.
Way positive money. So we're up on the year, so make sure you're heading over and reading that. But for tonight, Cale Makar over 1.5 points at plus 160.
That's good plus.
Again,
yeah,
you've got the San Jose Sharks. I think you get one. Val Nichushkin skating back with Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah, got
him at over half an assist at plus 175.
That feels really good.
That feels right. I mean, that one just kind of seemed like a no-brainer. And then I did, just because I'm determined to hit this one eventually, did take the Avs at minus 1.5 at minus 110 to beat the Sharks tonight by at least 2.
There you go.
I was tempted to take the over. It's even money, but it's 6.5. And it's just 6.5 is always a tough one.
Given that I now know that it's Sawchenko in net,
ooh,
might want to just take a lot of Avs to score points tonight in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah. Interesting.
So we'll see.
Well, I might have some decisions.
Yeah, gotta think about a couple of those bets, but you can go over to DraftKings and bet on those. Yeah, it should be a fun one. We're roughly 10 minutes from puck drop here, and we got to go.
I took the over.
There you go.
Took
him 7 seconds to think about it.
Thought about it, did it, and it's in.
We do have to switch over to our other studio, so we're going to wrap this one up quick. We appreciate all of y'all hanging out with us for pregame. We'll be back postgame to talk about this hockey game, and hopefully no trades happen in between. So
yeah, keep an eye out for players frantically leaving the ice.
It wouldn't be the first time. For sure on that one. So we appreciate all y'all, and we will talk to you in a couple of hours.